This is going to be India's decade.
It's not going to be India's decade, it's going to be India's century.
So to me, India is very well set up, and the resilience of the market this year, the Indian stock market in the face of very bearish global.
This is the Indian decade.
From over $3 trillion to more than $7 trillion, India's GDP is expected to more than double by the end of this decade. Not just that, our country is well estimated to become the world's third largest economy and stock market as well. Now, a report by Morgan Stanley also states that New India will drive a fifth of global growth through the end of this decade. Now, the country is all set to become not just the office to the world, but also the factory to the globe. Extremely bullish comments, right? But how will this happen? Why is everyone saying that this is going to be India's decade? What are the factors that are fueling the economic boom? Now, we will tell you all the factors that will be responsible to drive such a strong growth of the domestic economy in this video. But before that, don't forget to like, share this video and subscribe to the Moneycontrol YouTube channel. Now, we were talking about the golden period that awaits India. So, a recent report by Morgan Stanley has stated that India has the conditions in place for an economic boom. And the factors supporting that are offshoring and investment in manufacturing, the energy transition, and the country's advanced digital infrastructure.
India took about 31 years to add $3 trillion to its GDP, but the next $3 trillion will be added in the next 7 years. Despite the fact that GDP has grown to be a reasonable size, India will still be able to compound at 6.5%, which will be the fastest, for that 10-year period that we are saying India will grow at 6.5%. We are forecasting China growing at 3.6%.
Now, these drivers will make India the world's third largest economy and stock market before the end of the decade. Now, let's talk about these in more details. Number one, offshoring. In the post-COVID environment, global CEOs appear more comfortable with both work from home and work from India. Now, the emergence of distributed delivery models along with tighter labor markets globally has accelerated outsourcing to India. The number of global in-house captive centers that opened in India over the last 2 years was almost double that of the prior 4 years. During the 2 pandemic years, the number of people employed in this industry in India rose from 4.3 million to 5.1 million. And the country's share of global services trade rose 60 basis points to 4.3%. Now, in the coming decade, the number of people employed in India for jobs outside the country is likely to at least double to over 11 million. The Morgan Stanley report estimates that global spending on outsourcing could rise from $180 billion per year to around $500 billion by 2030. Now, this will have significant effects on both commercial and residential real estate demand. Don't get excited just yet. From the office to the world, India is increasingly becoming the factory to the world. The financial services firm also anticipates a wave of manufacturing capex aimed at lifting corporate profits, share of GDP via tax cuts, and performance-linked incentive or PLI schemes. Now, multinationals are more optimistic than ever about investing in India, and the government is encouraging investment by both building infrastructure and supplying land for factories. Number 2, digital differentiation. Now, the world has seen 4 different internet models. The US model, which is laissez-faire and built on advertising revenue. The Chinese model, which sits behind a firewall and has created domestic behemoths like Alibaba and Tencent. The more regulation-oriented European version, and India Stack, which is India's highly inclusive transaction-led model. Loosely put, India Stack is India's version of Web3. Now, the stack has 3 main layers: eKYC, DigiLocker and eSign, as well as multiple payment layers including UPI, the Aadhaar-enabled payment system, or AEPS, which facilitates direct benefit transfers and other payments. Now, this has changed the way India processes official documents, invests and make payments. The stack adds 3 significant layers that will alter the way India lends, spends and insures. The first, open credit-enabled network. Now, this is disruptive to the incumbent banks but will simultaneously raise credit penetration. It also has the potential to lower credit costs due to enhanced data access from multiple systems. The second, ONDC. Now, ONDC will aid the onboarding of merchants across the country and give consumers access to products hitherto available at higher cost. Now, this is a major disruption to the consumer sector. ONDC will have a disruptive impact on the existing business models of platforms. The third new layer, a digital health ID. Now, this will enable a unified interface which will be interoperable across health service providers. It will allow customized insurance solutions. Indeed, it could almost change the concept of insurance and gives the population better healthcare access. Now, implications include a rise in credit to GDP from 57% to 100%, better healthcare services, greater insurance penetration, a quintupling of stock market investors from 62 million up from 20 million 3 years ago to around 300 million.
But the government is more focused on job creation and less focused on redistribution. And for efficiency of redistribution spending, we've got the digitalization that is helping the government to reach welfare spending to the needy, and therefore, in some ways, making the whole public finances management more efficient. But this big picture policy shift that is happening in India is something that, having tracked China for so many years, I was also kind of, always comparing India and China, is that China manages social stability by focusing on job creation and private investment.
Number 3 is energy transition. Building up renewable sources, energy access is linked to economic prosperity. Now, India's daily per capita energy consumption is around 800 watts, excluding food, which adds another 100 watts. Now, this compares with 9,000 watts per capita per day for the US. Now, given the big upgrades to transmission and distribution over the past few years, every one of India's 600,000 plus villages now has access to electricity, compared to around 500,000 2 decades ago. The analyst report sees a steep change in India's energy consumption to about 1,300 watts per capita per day. Now, 2/3 of India's new energy availability will come from clean sources like solar, biofuels and hydrogen. That said, since the country is still growing its energy needs, legacy capacity using fossil fuels will not be destroyed as India transitions to a higher share of renewables. Now, this will positively impact India's terms of trade. To conclude, the research firm also estimates India to drive a fifth of global growth in the coming decade. So let's tighten our seatbelts as the Indian economy is all set to take off. Well, for more such videos, stay tuned to Moneycontrol.